Alright, what's up everybody? Everyday Angler back again with a beginner slash simple bass fly tying video. This is a part of the little series I'm doing on just basic flies for bass. These are for beginner fly tiers or just somebody who's trying to fill their box up with something and they're not too sure what flies they want to use, you know, when they're chasing bass. So this is going to be one of our smaller flies in the series. I am using a Ahrex. That shows you how much I know. An Ahrex Freshwater long dry fly hook in size 4. It's kind of the opposite of a dry fly that we're tying though. The I.D.C. Cray. I don't care Cray. And you'll see why it's called that here in a little bit. Let me zoom in and let's get this thing started. I'm using Vivis 140. In olive. This fly is gonna be olive, and what I'm gonna do is start my thread right in the middle here, make a little thread bump, come farther up to the hook eye, make another little thread bump. They're way farther apart than they should be, but we'll be fine. It's part of the I don't care Cray, right? Large dumbbell eyes, and this is where you have the choice of if you want to use bead chain, however much you want this thing to sink. I like my crayfish to be on the bottom. I'm going to tie these eyes in, and if you've watched my previous video, you know that I don't really go through how to tie dumbbell eyes in, but I do leave a link in my video to a pretty good video on how to do it. So let me get these tied in and I'll be right back. Alright, so I just tied my dumbbell eyes in. I'm going to run my thread back to almost the bend of the hook, right there. I've got some olive rabbit strips I'm going to use, and I'm just going to cut 2 really small pieces off. This is a smaller fly, like I said. So I guess if you want to compare the length, there's hair all over, that's fine. The length of the hide itself is almost from the eyes to the bend of the hook, right? And at the very front here, I'm going to tie these in to the side of the shank as best I can. And part of this fly, the I don't care, is just, if it's a little crooked, don't care, it doesn't matter. This thing is made to be not only a crayfish imitation, but just something buggy on the bottom that these fish want to snatch up. So I've got one on this side, I'm going to tie another one on the other side. Alright, so most of you probably already know these are my little claws here. You see one's a little longer. I don't care, right? And this fly is obviously going to be riding hook point up to try to avoid snagging a bunch of stuff on the bottom. So now this is probably the only material that most beginner fly tires don't have. This is a hen saddle in Grizzly. You can use any feather, slop in. If you have a pheasant sitting around, if you have a pheasant skin sitting around, you can use that. Anything really. All we're gonna do is palmer and hackle some stuff on here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna grab 2 feathers, depending on the size of the bird hide you're using. You know, I'm trying to grab some pretty big feathers, or the bigger feathers at least. I'm trying to grab 2 of them like this. I'm going to try to line them up as best I can. I'm going to peel the fibers back off of the very corner, so I've just got this little piece. And you see that big thread bump from where I've tied the zonker, this thread bump right here? We're going to tie these feathers in right after that. I'll try to tie it in like that so y'all can see what I'm talking about. just like that. And am I gonna cut this off? No. This is the I don't care crayfish. It's just part of the fly. Okay, I'm gonna run my hook or my thread back up to those dumbbell eyes. And I'm gonna palmer this stuff. Just twist this hackle over the hook shank. Over and over. And I'm trying to pick out some of the trapped fibers, but I'm not too worried about it. It's just part of the fly is for it to not be too perfect, right? So I've got it right up against my dumbbell eyes, and I'm gonna trap it with my thread. Just like that. And you can tie it, like, you don't have to tie it like this. You can tie it really clean, I guess you'd call it. And obviously it's still gonna fish fine. It's just, I thought, this is for beginners. We're not gonna worry about making this fly look good. You can see how messy it is up here. We're just gonna tie a super buggy, ineffective crayfish bug. It's almost more, I almost got more inspiration from redfish flies, honestly, than other crayfish patterns. Okay, so I've skipped my thread to the front of my dumbbell eyes now, and I'm gonna do the exact same thing I just did behind the dumbbell eye. So let me find my two feathers again. Tie them in, and I'm gonna run my thread right up against those eyes again and do the exact same thing. You can make this as neat or as messy as you want. So there we go, I'm gonna tie it off now. I feel like this is a pretty good view. I can zoom out a little bit. There you go. Now I'm going to try to grab these fibers back a bit like this and tie over them to kind of get them to push back just like that. And we can make these a little messier than we need to. So here's the profile of the fly so far. Looks pretty good, right? These things are going to act like little legs or just something. Make a lot of little tiny vibrations. See, the top of it looks pretty good. Okay, next, this is the secret ingredient right here. These are just silly legs from Sportsman's Warehouse. Silly legs, barred, green, and olive. Now, I've also like using like a hot spot. Like I might use some chartreuse or something like that just to give it a little more life. But I'm gonna stick with olive because I've already got this natural type presentation going on. So this is the cool part. Now you don't, obviously your round rubber legs aren't gonna come in these little strips like this, but I'm gonna take about, shoot, 5 of these like this. I'm gonna rip them off and rip them off. And sometimes you get left with this little tag end here. So I'm gonna flip my fly, how it's gonna fish like this, hook side up. And I'm just gonna lay this little, I'm gonna lay my legs over the fly and try to sneak this tag right on top of the hook shank like this. You can tie it in and then twist it before you cinch down on it. Helps. I know you guys can't say anything because of my fingers, but alright, so you see how I've tied that in? And we can cut, I like to cut it a little bit shorter than the length of the fly, so just about there. Exaggerated is good for bass. You know, if there's a crayfish beside this thing, you almost want it to eat this instead of the actual crayfish, which is pretty hard. Alright, this is the last step right here. So you see we've got all this hook shank left with thread on it. And what I'm gonna do now is when you're fishing cray, you're fishing the bottom, you're gonna get snagged. You can't avoid it. but we can do things to kind of help you out and not get snagged. So now we're gonna try to do like a clouser finish on it. So just olive bucktail. It doesn't have to be primo, nothing bucktail. This is actually a good piece of bucktail because it's so short and stiff. Then I'm gonna cut just a little clip of this off. Kind of shed those longer hairs off of it. And almost like we're doing a clouser, I'm gonna stick this bucktail right here a little bit over the point of the hook. I'm gonna twist this thread a little bit. And I'm actually gonna leave a little excess, which is gonna be our little crayfish tail, right? So I'm gonna lay it right over everything like this. I'm gonna do like 2 loose wraps. I'm gonna bring my thumbs under it and pull up on it. You see how everything's flared up like that? Then I'm gonna make some securing wraps on it. Then I'm gonna pull the front of this hair back and take a couple wraps in front of it, and that's gonna post that hair up just like that. And then we can move up to the hook, the eye of our hook. Throw some glue in there. This is fabric glue. I started using this. It's kind of hard to work with, but once it sets, it's pretty freaking hard to beat. You just don't want to get it all over the fly because it's kind of a pain in the butt. Just like that. So this kind of acts like that, you know, that crayfish type tail kicking up, and I'll show you the profile of it. It's pretty nice. And you see this one I've cut the tail a little shorter than this one. That's a preference thing. So this is what the fish is gonna look at like this. It's got his little arms sticking out. Silly legs are gonna be flopping. Underbody looks pretty good. And that is it, everybody. The I.D.C. I don't care Cray. Tied up 2 of them, super quick tie. It's been, you know, like a 12-minute tie live with me talking, so if you really sit down and start knocking them out, I wouldn't be surprised if it's 4 or 5 minutes of tie. So these are the first simple flies in the buggier / crayfish, and I'm gonna do like a little fly box of simple bass flies. So thank you for watching, everybody, and I'll catch you guys next time on another episode of The Everyday Angler.